episode 114, Interactive Audience Feedback. This is the Ericast for the week of June 14, 2009.
From Ericast.com.
Ericast.com.
Welcome to the Ericast.
Well, thanks as always for listening to the Ericast. I'm your host, Eric Larson. 206-339-3742 is our listener feedback line. You can also send an email to eric@ericast.com. And I'm moving along quite quickly because this week's episode is going to be sort of interesting. I've been promising to get to some listener feedback that we've had in the past month or two or so, I think. It's been a while. And I keep not getting to it. Well, this week I'm going to get to it, but if you're watching on YouTube, there's going to be kind of an interesting little feature here. We're going to see if we can use the annotation and pause features of YouTube, fingers crossed, to sort of make this a little bit more interactive. So the question is, for you, the YouTube viewer, and if you're listening to this, you just keep listening along, you'll be fine, but you can also go out to YouTube and watch the Dweeb Thoughts feed. But the question is, what would you like next? Well, okay, I'll just forge right ahead and not change anything. Okay. All right, so first up we have a call from Joneser.
Hey, Eric. This is Joneser. And I'm just calling because, I'm just calling because it's been a while. And like your last podcast, I really don't have a lot to say. Oh, that's mean. I'm sorry. Oh, I enjoy your podcast. Let's see. Well, things are good here, and sounds like things are good there. You know what I think the Ericast needs? This is actually what I'm calling it. This is what I think you need to do. You need guests, dude. A long time ago, you had somebody by the name of Tom O'Skin. You might remember him. And he was a guest, and that was pretty interesting. And then I offered myself up as a guest, of which you have never asked. And am I offended? No, absolutely not yet. And so I think you need guests, and that would be cool. And you could have the Digital Dan on as a guest too. I mean, because that would be cool. And you could have other people, maybe you could call up, some other people, some friends, and have guests, and some other people that we hear on the show, maybe Joanne and stuff, and guests. That's all I'm saying. And so, hope you're doing well. Sounds like things are good. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye for now.
So there you have it. The Ericast has been on the air, so to speak, as a podcast for a long time. I think my favorite call is from Casey DeFranco, the country crock woman. But that one ranks right up there. So given Joneser's spectacularly articulate call, I'm thinking that having him as a guest might be a good idea for the Ericast, and sort of raise the entertainment value. Thank you very much for the call. I do appreciate it. I'll be sure to check with the Digital Dan to see if Dan can send a call. There you go, Dan. You've been prompted by Joneser. I would love to do an interview with Joanne. For those of you that don't recognize the name, Joanne is the female voice of the Ericast in the intro and the outro. If you're watching YouTube, you might think that was sort of interesting and would love the opportunity to hear it again. So here's your chance. Or we can just forge right ahead. That's no problem. We'll just move on to what's next. And up next, we have a call from Matt Beckwith.
Hey, Eric, this is Matt calling from very hot California. Just listening to episode 109, and it's interesting. I have, I'm a little behind in my podcast listening, and I have 2 Ericasts in my iPod. That hasn't happened in a long time, my friend. But great to hear from you. But wanted to comment on your domain woes, and I was in a similar situation. My primary domain, mattbeckwith.com, is actually a folder on my another domain, beckwithweb.com, and hosted and registered at GoDaddy. I have an account there that allows me something like a bajillion Brontobytes or some insane thing like that. So when I first started Pizza Go Here, I did the same thing. I forwarded the URL to beckwithweb.com/podcast, and it's static in the URL address bar, which sucks because then if you click on a link within it, and even an external site, because I don't have it opening in new windows because that drives me crazy, it says pizzagohere.com. And I've thought about just moving it over to the actual domain, pizzagohere.com, but I don't want to break it, and I don't want to do a RSS redirect because I don't trust that it'll work or that I'll be able to do it. So yeah, I feel your pain on that one. But I recently started another podcast, a local podcast, and that one I wanted to do it in WordPress so I could edit it via the web as opposed to an application, which I do for my other things. And I found out that my other domains, everything, my multiple domains are hosted on a Windows box, and the new version of WordPress required Linux, so I had to get another hosting account with another billion Brontobytes for to put it on the Linux box. So yeah, it's not as easy as it should be, especially to change that RSS point to link. But anyway, I rambled, but long way of saying I feel your pain. I don't want to break any of my links either. So anyway, great to hear from you, and I'll go back to listening to 109 and 110. See ya.
Well, thanks, Matt, for the call and for sharing the domain angst, or angst, one of the early words of the week in the Ericast. A quick workaround tip, Matt probably knows this, but for anyone else that's listening, with GoDaddy and some other web hosts, they tend to call it like a cloaked redirect. You're basically loading a frame. The frame has your domain name, like Ericast.com, and it's a full screen frame, and then your other thing loads within that frame so you don't see that. That's what Matt's talking about. So anytime you click on something, it keeps loading in the same frame, and it still says Ericast.com up at the top. Well, I'm just thinking for those of us that actually read left to right, I should go Ericast.com like that so that it lines up in the video. I'm sorry, distraction. What you can do with each and every one of your links, to open it in a new window, like Matt mentioned, you can set a target, and it's target equals quote underscore blank, I think it is. But if you target top, target equals quote underscore top, close quote, then when someone clicks a link, it will load into that top frame. It's loading the top level of whatever's in that browser, and it uncloaks it. That's very, very obscure and confusing, and probably makes no sense to anybody. Anybody that understands it probably knew it already. But it's the tip of the day from the Ericast, so there you go. It's also interesting that you mentioned WordPress, Matt, because I currently have not a WordPress issue, but a WordPress thing. In that on my GoDaddy host, I have an old version of WordPress for a blog that I've got because the template works with that and doesn't work with the new ones, and I'm kind of scared to upgrade and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, YouTube viewers, one last choice to make. You know, it's kind of funny. I just realized that graphic says Finsish up. Not right. Anyway, closing remarks. There is actually a lot of stuff to talk about this week, but we don't have time to get to it because we're running up on our new improved 10-minute mark. So I want to make sure that you know to call the listener feedback line, 206-339-3742. You can leave a message, just like we heard today. Also, you can email. That gives you a chance to proofread or that sort of thing. Eric@ericast.com. That'll get to me with no problem. But yeah, it's been a busy week. Up at work, we're installing new computers, and so that's always kind of a busy, sort of chaotic time. Tearing down a couple buildings. If you watched the video, you saw the photos there in the opening montage. I got my Facebook name, facebook.com/emlarson, but that'll have to wait until next week. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Ericast from Ericast.com.
Visit us at www.ericast.com.